There's a question that haunts every human being who has ever loved and lost. It keeps you awake at AM, it follows you into every new relationship, whispering doubts into your ear. It's the question you've probably asked yourself more times than you can count. Why did they leave? Was it something I did? Was it something I didn't do? Was I not enough? Was there someone else? Did I miss the signs? Could I have done something differently? The pain of being left is not just about the loss of the person. It's about what their leaving says about you. Or at least, that's how it feels. Their departure feels like a verdict, a judgment on your worth, your livability, your value as a human being. If I had been better, they would have stayed. If I had been more attractive, more successful, more interesting, more patient, more fun, they would have chosen me. But here's what I want you to consider today. What if the reasons people leave have less to do with you and more to do with universal psychological forces that operate in every relationship, across every culture, across all of human history? What if the pain of being left is not a verdict on your worth, but simply a feature of being human, messy, imperfect, finite humans trying to connect with other messy, imperfect, finite humans? Research published in peer-reviewed journals including the Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin and the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships has identified distinct patterns in why relationships end. These patterns are predictable. They follow laws as consistent as gravity. And once you understand them, two things happen. First, the mystery dissolves. You stop asking, why me? And start asking, what happened? Second, the shame dissolves. You stop believing that they're leaving means you're unlovable and start seeing it as data. Painful data, but data nonetheless. Today, we're going to explore the psychology of why people leave. We'll look at the research on relationship dissolution. We'll examine attachment theory and how it shapes who we choose and how we leave. We'll explore the evolutionary biology of breakups, and we'll identify the relationship factors that predict when people will walk away. But most importantly, we're going to answer the question that really matters. Not why they left, but what their leaving means for you. Because understanding is the first step toward healing, and healing is the first step toward building relationships that last. Let's begin. Part 1. The push and pull of commitment. Let's start with the foundational research on why relationships end. In a major study published in the Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin, researchers examined the reasons people give for leaving relationships. They found that the reasons to stay: satisfaction, love, investment. Commitment are often the mirror image of the reasons to leave. When satisfaction is high, people stay. When satisfaction drops, people leave. When love is strong, people stay. When love fades, people leave. When investment is high, people stay. When investment feels like a sunk cost, people leave. But here's what's surprising. Some factors matter more for leaving than for staying. The researchers found that the quality of alternatives is a much stronger predictor of leaving than of staying. In plain language, when people have attractive options elsewhere, or when they perceive that they have attractive options, they're more likely to leave, even if the current relationship isn't terrible, even if they still care about you. This is not about blame. It's about human nature. We constantly evaluate our options, consciously or unconsciously. And when the perceived alternatives seem better, more exciting, more compatible, more rewarding, the current relationship is at risk. This confirms a core principle of interdependence theory, which has been a foundation of relationship science for decades. The theory says that commitment is not just about how happy you are. It's about a combination of three factors. 1. Satisfaction. How rewarding is this relationship compared to your expectations? 2. Alternatives. How do your options compare to what you have now? 3. Investment. How much have you put into this relationship that you would lose if you left? When satisfaction drops, alternatives look good, and investment feels like a trap, people leave. This doesn't make the pain disappear, but it does something important. It removes the mystery. Relationship dissolution follows patterns as predictable as gravity. Another study, published in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships, identified 5 distinct reasons why people break up. 1. Loss of attraction. The emotional or physical spark fades. 2. unmet needs. One partner feels unseen, unsupported, or unfulfilled. 3. Infidelity, betrayal of trust, whether physical or emotional. 4. Conflict, unresolved disagreements that erode connection. 5. Life changes, different life paths, values, or goals. Notice what's missing from this list. Because the other person wasn't good enough. Because the other person was fundamentally unlovable. The reasons are about the relationship, not about the inherent worth of either person. Part 2. Attachment styles and how we leave. Now let's go deeper to understand not just why people leave, but how they leave and what that says about them. We need to look at attachment theory. Attachment theory, developed by John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth, is one of the most well-researched frameworks in all of psychology. It explains how our earliest relationships shape our expectations for love, safety, and connection. There are 4 primary attachment styles. Secure attachment develops when caregivers are consistently responsive. Securely attached people are comfortable with intimacy, trust others, and believe they are worthy of love. They can be close without losing themselves. They can be apart without panicking. Anxious attachment develops when caregivers are inconsistent, sometimes loving, sometimes distant. Anxiously attached people crave closeness but fear abandonment. They tend to worry about their partner's love, seek constant reassurance, and become clingy or jealous. Avoidant attachment develops when caregivers are consistently rejecting or distant. Avoidantly attached people learn that depending on others is dangerous. They value independence above all, distrust intimacy, and tend to push partners away when they get too close. Disorganized attachment develops in response to frightening or abusive caregiving. It's a mix of anxious and avoidant patterns, craving closeness and fearing it at the same time. Now here's where it gets fascinating. Research published in the Journal of Research in Personality examined how people with different attachment styles and relationships. Attachment avoidance is associated with using less direct breakup strategies. People high in avoidance don't have the hard conversation. They disappear. They ghost. They create distance without explanation. They withdraw and wait for the other person to give up. This is not necessarily malicious. For someone with avoidant attachment, intimacy feels dangerous. Direct confrontation feels overwhelming. Disappearing is a survival strategy, one that protected them as children, but hurts partners as adults. Attachment anxiety tells a different story. Anxiously attached people use strategies meant to keep the door open. They want to break up and keep you as an option. They may hover, text, call, or create drama, anything to maintain connection, even if the connection is painful. Why? Because for someone with anxious attachment, being completely alone feels like death. Their attachment system is constantly scanning for signs of abandonment. Even a bad connection is better than no connection. This explains those confusing breakups where someone says it's over but keeps texting, keeps calling, keeps showing up. They're not being cruel intentionally. They're being driven by an attachment system that can't tolerate permanent loss. But here's the hopeful news. The researchers also found that attachment security can be enhanced when people were primed with feelings of security through visualization, memory recall, or supportive relationships. Their tendency to use harmful breakup strategies decreased. This means that while our early experiences shape us, they don't sentence us. People can learn to leave and to stay with more compassion, more clarity, and more integrity. The psychologist and author Dr. Emil Levin, in his book Attached, writes, "Your attachment style is not your destiny. It's the starting point. With awareness and effort, you can move towards security." How? Someone leaves you, tells you more about their attachment wounds than it tells you about your worth. Their ghosting is not proof that you're forgettable. Their hovering is not proof that you're impossible to leave. It's proof that they are wounded and that their wound is not yours to fix. Part 3. The chemistry of breaking up. There's another layer to this that most people don't consider. It's not just psychological, it's biological. Research from St. Louis University, published in the Review of General Psychology, suggests we are literally hardwired to fall out of love and move on. Brian Boutwell, the lead researcher, explains, "Our review of the literature suggests we have a mechanism in our brains designed by natural selection to pull us through a very tumultuous time in our lives." Here's where it gets fascinating. Brain imaging studies show that when people are deeply in love, The same pleasure centers light up that activate with cocaine use. Love, from a neurological perspective, is an addiction. This explains why breaking up feels like withdrawal, because it is withdrawal. Boutwell notes, trying to move on from a former mate may be similar, in some ways, to an attempt at breaking a drug habit. Your brain is flooded with dopamine and oxytocin when you're with the person you love. When they leave, those chemicals drop. Your brain goes into a kind of withdrawal. You crave them like an addict craves a fix. This is not weakness. This is neurochemistry. The researchers also found that men and women may leave for different evolutionary reasons. Men tend to be more sensitive to sexual infidelity rooted in the evolutionary need for paternal certainty. Women tend to be more sensitive to emotional infidelity because loss of emotional connection can mean loss of resources and protection. But here's what both genders share: cruelty is universally unacceptable. Neither men nor women tolerate partners who are cruel, abusive, or consistently dismissive. This isn't about excusing behavior. It's about understanding that some of what drives people apart is ancient, encoded, and operating below the level of conscious choice. The evolutionary psychologist Dr. David Buss, author of The Evolution of Desire, writes, "The mind is a collection of evolved mechanisms designed to solve adaptive problems. Mating and leaving are both part of that collection. Understanding the biology of breakups doesn't make the pain go away, but it does something important: it depersonalizes it. Their leaving is not just about you. It's about millions of years of evolution shaping brains that weren't designed for modern monogamy." Part 4. The relationship factors that erode love. Beyond attachment and evolution, there are relationship-specific factors that predict when people will leave. These are the slow erosions, the things that happen over time, often unnoticed, until one day the love is gone. Clinical psychologist Dr. Susan Orenstein notes that relationships don't just naturally fall apart. There are identifiable reasons. Factor number 1, needs go unmet. What attracted partners initially can become intolerable over time. The sociable partner becomes too loud. The laid-back partner becomes lazy. The driven partner becomes workaholic. We stop seeing each other with fresh eyes. We start seeing each other through a filter of frustration. The very qualities that once drew us in become the qualities that drive us away. Factor number 2, the honeymoon ends and couples mistake this for failure. The early intensity of romance is designed by evolution to bond us. It's a chemical cocktail of dopamine, oxytocin, and norepinephrine, but it doesn't last. It's not supposed to. When the intensity fades, many couples think they've fallen out of love. In reality, they've just entered a different phase, one that requires conscious effort, communication, and commitment. The researcher, Dr. Helen Fisher, a biological anthropologist, distinguishes between 3 brain systems: lust, romantic love, and attachment. These systems can operate independently. You can lose romantic love and still have attachment. You can have attachment and still feel lust for someone else. Understanding this helps couples normalize the transition. The end of the honeymoon is not the end of love. It's the beginning of real love, the kind that chooses, not just feels. Factor number 3, conflict is avoided or handled destructively. Some couples swallow their feelings to keep the peace, but unexpressed frustration doesn't disappear. It accumulates. It becomes resentment. It leaks out in sarcasm, withdrawal, or criticism. Other couples fight dirty yelling, name-calling, bringing up the past, attacking character. This erodes safety, and without safety, intimacy cannot survive. The research of Dr. John Gottman, the world's leading relationship scientist, found that 4 behaviors predict divorce with remarkable accuracy: criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. He calls these the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Factor number 4, routine and monotony take over. When relationships become predictable and boring, the excitement that once fueled connection disappears. Novelty is essential for keeping love alive. Research shows that couples who try new things together, novel, challenging, exciting activities, report higher relationship satisfaction. Novelty activates the dopamine system, creating feelings of excitement and reward. And those feelings get associated with the partner. Without novelty, relationships stagnate. Partners drift toward the exit, sometimes without even knowing why. Factor number 5, betrayal of trust. This is the most obvious factor, but it's worth naming. Infidelity, whether physical or emotional, shatters the foundation of trust. Some relationships recover, many do not. But betrayal doesn't have to be infidelity. It can be broken promises. It can be lying about money. It can be sharing private information. It can be choosing others over the partner repeatedly. Trust is built in small moments, and it's eroded in small moments too. The key insight from relationship experts: falling out of love is not a mysterious event. It's a process with identifiable causes. And if you can identify the causes, you can sometimes reverse the process. Part 5, the stories we tell ourselves after being left. When someone leaves us, we don't just feel pain. We tell ourselves stories about why it happened. And those stories can either trap us in shame or free us to heal. The story of defectiveness. They left because something is wrong with me. I'm not lovable. I'm not enough. I'm too much. I'm broken. This story is the most painful and the most common, but it's also the least accurate. People leave for reasons that have little to do with your inherent worth. They leave because of their attachment style, their unmet needs, their fear of intimacy, their own unhealed wounds. Their leaving is not a verdict. It's a data point, the story of blame. They left because they're a terrible person. They're selfish, cruel, incapable of love. This story protects you from pain in the short term, but it also prevents you from learning. If the other person is all bad, you don't have to examine your own role in the dynamic. You don't have to grow. Most relationships end not because one person is evil and the other is innocent. They end because two imperfect people created a dynamic that stopped working. The story of regret. If only I had done X, they would have stayed. This story keeps you trapped in the past. It assumes you had control over their decision, which you didn't. People leave for their own reasons, not because you failed to perform correctly. The healing story. They left because the relationship stopped working for them. That's painful, but it doesn't mean I'm unlovable. It means this particular relationship ran its course. I will grieve, I will learn, I will grow, and I will love again. This story acknowledges pain without letting it define you. It takes responsibility where appropriate without taking on false blame. It holds hope without denying reality. The writer and poet Rumi wrote, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." The pain of being left can become a teacher. It can teach you what you need. It can teach you what you'll tolerate. It can teach you how to show up differently for yourself and for the next person worthy of your love. Part 6. How to heal and what to do next. If you're in the aftermath of being left, here's how to move through the pain and come out the other side. Step 1. Grieve. Don't skip this. You've lost something real. A relationship, a future you imagined, a version of yourself that existed in that partnership. Let yourself feel the sadness, the anger, the confusion. Don't try to stay positive or move on before you've actually moved through. Grief has its own timeline. Respect it. Step 2. Stop trying to solve the mystery. You will never fully know why they left, even if they give you reasons. Those reasons are filtered through their own perceptions, defenses, and blind spots. Let go of the need for complete understanding. You don't need to solve the puzzle to heal. You just need to accept that it's over and that you can still be whole. Step 3. Separate their leaving from your worth. This is the most important step. Their decision to leave was about them, their needs, their fears, their limitations, their readiness for intimacy. It was not a referendum on your value as a human being. Repeat that until you believe it. Step 4. Identify what you learned. What did this relationship teach you about what you need? What did it teach you about what you won't tolerate? What patterns from your past showed up again? Healing is not about erasing the past. It's about integrating the lessons so you don't repeat the pain. Step 5. Rebuild your life not around a new person, but around yourself. Don't immediately look for a new relationship to fill the void. You'll just repeat the patterns. Spend time alone. Reconnect with friends. Pursue interests you neglected. Build a life that feels full and meaningful with or without a partner. Then, when you're ready, you won't be looking for someone to complete you. You'll be looking for someone to complement the person you've already become. Part 7. When to stay and when to go. We've spent most of this video talking about being left, but what about the other side? What about knowing when you should leave? Because the psychology of leaving is just as important as the psychology of being left. Signs: it might be time to go. Your needs are consistently unmet despite clear communication. There is a pattern of disrespect, cruelty, or abuse. You've grown in different directions and no longer share core values. You're staying out of guilt, fear, or sunk cost, not love. The relationship diminishes you more than it lifts you. You've tried to repair therapy, conversation, effort, and nothing changes. Signs: it might be time to stay. The love is still there, but you're in a rough patch, which is normal. Both partners are willing to work on the relationship. The issues are behavioral, not characterological. They can change, they just haven't yet. You still feel safe, respected, and valued even if you're frustrated. You can imagine a future together that's worth fighting for. The courage to leave. Leaving a relationship, even a bad one, takes courage. You may fear being alone. You may fear hurting the other person. You may fear the unknown. But staying in a relationship that's not working is not kindness. It's not loyalty. It's fear dressed up as virtue. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for both people is to leave. The writer and poet David Whyte writes, "The ultimate touchstone of companionship is not whether the other person likes your strengths, but whether they can bear witness to your weaknesses without using them against you. If your partner cannot do that, if they use your vulnerabilities as weapons, you are not in a relationship. You are in a battleground, and you have permission to leave." Conclusion: you are still worthy. Let's come back to the question that started this video. Why did they leave? After everything we've explored, the research, the attachment styles, the evolutionary biology, the relationship factors, the stories we tell ourselves, here's what I want you to understand. Sometimes people leave because of who they are. Their attachment wounds, their inability to do hard things directly, their addiction to the new, their fear of intimacy, their own unhealed pain. Sometimes people leave because of what the relationship became. Unmet needs, unspoken frustrations, unresolved conflicts, a slow drift into distance and routine. And sometimes people leave for reasons you'll never fully know, and that's not a failure on your part. It's just the mystery of two separate human beings trying to stay connected in a world that constantly pulls them apart. But here's what their leaving does not mean. It does not mean you were unlovable. It does not mean you were not enough. It does not mean every future relationship will end the same way. It does not mean you are broken. It does not mean you should stop trusting. It does not mean you should stop loving. The poet Rumi wrote, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." The pain of being left can become a teacher. It can teach you what you need. It can teach you what you'll tolerate. It can teach you how to show up differently for yourself and for the next person worthy of your love. The psychology of why people leave is complex, but the truth about who you are is simple. You are someone who loved. And that capacity for love, despite the risk of loss, is not a weakness. It's the most courageous thing about you. Keep loving, keep learning, keep growing. And when someone leaves, let them go, not with bitterness, but with the quiet confidence that your story is still being written. Because their leaving is about them. Your healing is about you. And both are part of becoming whole. The leaving is about them. The healing is about you. And you are still worthy of love. If this video resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear that their worth is not determined by who stays and who goes. Subscribe for more deep dives into psychology, relationships, and the art of being human. I'll see you in the next one.